So I did SDG 11 Sustainable Cities and Communities specifically in Japan. So I'm gonna start with urbanization. So this is currently the number of people living in urban areas versus rural areas around the world. So right now about 60% of the world's total population lives in urban areas versus the 40% that live in rural areas, and it's a increasing number as time goes on. So, urbanization, the world's current population is 7.7 billion people. About 60% of the world's population lives in the urban areas. These increasing numbers calls for more sustainable ways to live in cities. In Japan, 91.7% of people live in urban settings, which only leaves 10 million of the 126 million people not living in cities. A major contributor to sustainable cities is finding a way to power the sustainable technology, specifically renewable energy sources. So this is the graph of the amount of renewable energy sources that are used for the total energy source in the United States. Right now it's currently about 13%, which is something that could definitely be changed and increased. So, over here is another, this is a pie graph that divides the energy sources. Petroleum takes up about 36%, natural gas does about 32, coal 11, nuclear 8, and over here is other renewable energy sources that are divided between wind, hydroelectric, geothermal, biomass, and solar. Renewable energy has the potential to meet demand with a much smaller environmental footprint and can help to alleviate other pressing problems such as energy security by contributing to a disturbed energy infrastructure. So, about 79% of the country's energy comes from fossil fuels. 8.4% of the country's energy comes from nuclear, and about 12.5% or 13 comes from renewable energy sources. Wind and solar are the fastest growing renewable energy sources, but they only take up about 5% of the total energy used in the US. Moving into electric cars and public electric transportation. So I'm going to compare the electric vehicle sales in the US versus Japan. In 2021, the United States sold a little over 600,000 light electric cars, which broke records for any years before. 83% more electric cars were sold than years before because the demand did not start till about 2018. And here is the graph of Japan's renewable energy source versus the total energy source used. Right now it's about 22 to 20%. This graph might be a little outdated, but in 2023 it's about 20%. So here is another pie graph that divides the all the energy sources. So coal is about 26.5%, natural gas is about 31.7%, oil does about 2.5%, other fossils do about 11%, and over here is the split between all the renewable energy sources. Renewable energy is about 22% of the total electricity generated. Japan is expected to be the third producer of off-wind power by 2040. To advance to more sustainable cities and communities, one of the main steps is to reduce CO2 emissions and fossil fuels and find other ways to create electricity like wind power, water power, solar power, and nuclear power. In Japan, in 2022, the solar and wind power have become much more prominent thanks to the Renewable Energy Act. This act defines renewable energy as solar, biomass, wind, and geothermal. Additionally, the Japanese government is planning on establishing wind power as the cheaper energy source than thermal energy and aims to reach this goal by about 2035. Japan aims to accomplish this by mainly increasing its generation of wind energy, which will become the third producer. Well, they expect it to become the third producer of offshore wind power by 2040. Making wind power more affordable will especially impact for low-income communities because low-income communities in Japan have a much higher energy poverty rate than any other wealthy communities. Um, Over here is the sale of is a graph about the sale about electric cars. In 2021, Japan sold approximately 54.37 thousand new electric vehicles, increasing from the 34.38 from the past years. The increase in electric cars also increased the electric charging stations in Japan, which will help contribute to the overall SDG goal 11. Um, Japan announced they want to only sell domestically sold cars to be electric by 2035. So this is a graph of access to electricity in urban versus rural areas, and this is in Japan. It's about pretty much about 100% have electricity in rural versus urban areas. They have a very high energy access. There are many examples across the board of development which can result in higher living standards, which contribute to the energy source in urban populations than in rural areas. Some examples are all countries' electricity access is higher in urban areas than rural areas. Access to improve sanitation is higher in urban areas. Access to improve drinking water is higher in urban areas. Access to clean fuels for cooking and heating is higher in urban areas. Child malnutrition is lower in urban areas. So they aim to address all those issues and solutions. So this is the Xmind tool I designed for sustainable cities and communities. So I did like 4 main branches through my research. One of them was my main focus today was renewable energy sources, solar energy, wind, water energy. So yeah. And one of the other is creating urban parks, which helps to create green spaces, plant trees, and also helps bring communities together through creating cooperative activities. Another big thing in Japanese cities is electric transportation, either electric city buses or electric cars. Many people use public transportation in Japan. It's very common. And another thing is green and affordable housing. It helps energy efficient appliances. You can do an efficient lighting, efficient heating and cooling systems. And how this all connects to global information systems, I mainly focused on Internet of Things. Internet of Things is used in public transportation systems to keep an efficient public bus schedule. Internet of Things connects all the buses through a system to inform bus drivers of their route, the time that they need to be at each stop, and where the other buses are in the area. An app is used to inform possible bus passengers about where the bus is and what time it's expected to be at their bus stop. Internet of Things can be embedded across city infrastructures. For example, reducing fossil fuels is a step towards more sustainable environment. And Japan uses electric cars charging stations, which led to an increase of purchased electric vehicles. Computer systems like Internet of Things are used to keep track of the efficiency and amount of electricity the renewable energy sources are generating compared to non-renewable energy sources. So global information technologies has really made sustainable cities and communities mission a lot more efficient through modernizing it. So thank you. That's all.